Do you read cards? Humankind has always been drawn to the mystical and divine, and to reading fortunes to brace for the life or death ahead. Tonight we talk tarot with artist Stephanie Cost about the deck she designed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. I'm your host, Kat Cloco, and tonight, like every week, I am joined with co-hosts. Well, not joined with the co-hosts, but the co-hosts are joining me on here tonight. Jen Kohler and Christina Wald. Good evening, ladies. The cicadas are out. The pollen is up. We're all wearing our glasses, which you can't see if you're not on YouTube.
Just imagine.
Everything going well?
Yes, it's going really well. We're recording this right before Memorial Day weekend, so
woohoo!
Yes.
Everybody's kind of getting ready for that. And has anyone tried cooking cicadas yet?
No.
Oh, hell no.
Today at the illustrator's lunch, one of the illustrators there said he actually had prepared cicadas last time they came out. Didn't mention if he was preparing them this time, but they actually said that they can make your dog their stomach upset.
Yeah, so the vets around us have been suggesting dogs who are keen on eating cicadas. Not every dog wants to. Like 2/3 of my dogs don't want to touch them. Just using a mesh muzzle just to keep them from eating them, because although one or two may be okay, eating more, there's a lot of protein in each cicada. Their wings don't digest well and could hurt their tummies. So
I heard that,
yeah, so their wings and legs don't digest well. Unfortunately, Chewy is living up to his name and trying to eat them. So we're not sure if we're going to go the muzzle route or just make sure we walk Chewy really early in the morning or really late at night when the cicadas just aren't as active.
Mm-hmm. And next week we're going to be talking about cicadas.
Yes, we will be. I may be collecting ones that have naturally passed away, whose bodies are in good condition, and putting them in a plastic baggie in my freezer so that I can mount them in a few weeks. And then I will show everyone my handiwork. It's my first taxidermy job. I'm quite excited.
Well, it's funny because when we were sketching at the zoo today, we were in the insect world because it was raining, so we had to sketch inside. And they had a cicada exhibit, and people would walk by it and say, you'd think they would put some real ones in for, but of course cicadas don't live long enough to live in their display.
Yeah.
But it was a really interesting place to sketch. I sketched these really funky looking beetles, and another sketcher joined me today. A lot of people were frightened by the rain, but that's actually the best day to go to the zoo is when it's raining. There aren't as many people. And we just
then in the winter too.
Yeah. The winter afternoons are the best.
Do you go to the nature preserve? Sorry, Jen.
No, it's okay. You're fine.
I have been before, but I don't sketch there that often. I don't even know if I have sketched there, period, actually.
What were you going to ask, Jen?
I was just going to say I did notice that the cicadas in my neighborhood were louder today when I took the trash out.
Yeah, there's more of them.
Yeah.
It's been up in the 90s and the 80s here in Cincinnati, which is a little bit unseasonably warm. And all the cicadas decided that they needed to leave the ground and just join the rest of their brothers and sisters in the trees. Our backyard overnight turned into cicada central. And they are all over my fence. They're all over the... any dog toy, there are cicadas. They attach to our gardening gloves we left outside. They're on my kiddo's little play tent. The only place they're not on is the slide, because they would just slide down it. They couldn't attach. So I have a bunch of dead, half molted cicadas around the play area, which is kind of gross. I find it fascinating, but I don't want Cy picking them up because they're kind of gooey. So
there was I have a classmate that works at a cemetery in Dayton, and she posted a bunch of pictures of gravestones covered in cicadas. I should ask her if we could use some for the episode next week.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Because it has this area of creepiness.
Yeah, that it does when you see all the little shell cast-offs all over everything.
I will not be getting close enough to photograph them. Sorry.
I
Not
I
after my
have
incident. Mm-mm.
with them crawling on your
Went
head.
in the hair. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I was taking video of them yesterday. I have at least an hour's worth of footage between a few different nights of
Oh,
them
cool.
molting and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then even today I was taking photos. I've been part of this cicada safari, which is an app you can get on your phone to help track Mount St. Joseph's entomology lab, just
Oh,
kind of
cool.
where they are and how they're developing and everything. So I sent them photos of all, like, they really love daffodils, and they piled onto my neighbor's daffodils because those have already bloomed, and she had already tied them up for the year, but there were so many attached to them, it fell down, like
Aw.
the tied up daffodils, and they're permanently smushed now for the rest of the
Oh.
year. So, and there was another Rosa Sharon plants.
Mhm.
Those they also attach to, and they I don't think have bloomed yet for the year, and their stalks are already drooping down from the weight of all the cicadas.
Oh.
So I don't mind them on trees. I don't mind them on large bushes, but for the small plants, it's a little bit too much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I just don't have that many. Here.
We don't have that many yet either. There's some on some of the big trees, but a lot of our big trees have been removed from our yard and stuff too.
Yeah.
We just don't have. We didn't have a ton last time. I mean, we have some, but nothing
Yeah.
like some of the areas
Not like
that
that.
I've seen. Yeah,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
the whole backyard is covered with them.
Yeah. Well, the males come out first, and now the ladies are joining them. So it could be just that you have a lot more females than you do males in your area of the city.
That could be it. That could be it.
Mhm.
But
And
They're
the
about to get
females
the
don't
party
make
on.
sound. So yeah, the males are the ones that are making the sound. I keep finding
Okay.
females now, and you can tell from the shape of their bum, basically.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I have a lot of fun cicadas stuff to talk about next week because,
Oh,
as you
good.
can tell, I have turned into a cicada nerd over all of this. Also, tonight, or actually this morning, was a lunar eclipse.
I saw
Oh, the
that. I saw
what?
people posting about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Oh my god, was it the blood flower moon?
Ooh, I love the
Oh.
name.
Yeah.
It sounds like a missing Sailor Moon character. Yeah, that happened in the United States really early this morning, and other parts of the world at more reasonable times of the day. And yeah, I've seen a few good photos of it. On social media, you can find us at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and please send us your hometown haunts, weird history, or other fun little trivia things about your local hometown to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. And of course, we are, thanks to Jen, on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and SoundCloud, and of course YouTube, because you're watching us there. Hello. Find us on iTunes at Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell people about us. You know. So before Stephanie joins us tonight, we are going to do an utterly incomplete history of tarot. But we only say that just out of honesty because tarot has a really long and complicated history. And unfortunately, I don't think we have enough time in the day to go through every single little nuance. So we're hitting the highlights. This is the highlight reel. So the first records date to 1367 in Bern, as they appear to have spread very rapidly across the whole of Europe, as many as may be seen from the records mainly of card games being banned. Wow, they just banned tarot. It wasn't as cool as chess.
Although I think it was because they gambled.
Oh yeah. Oh,
it was gambling.
Gambling
and so
is a thing, isn't it?
So they think that records were kind of not there because people hid them.
Yeah, that you had to do a lot of reading between the lines. No, it's fine. Although using cards for divination goes back to the 14th century, likely originating with the Mamluk game cards brought to Western Europe from Turkey, they were not used for occult purposes until the 18th century. There is no evidence that tarot cards have origins in ancient Egypt, Kabbalah, etc. Any relation was more likely cultural appropriation. Often cards would be imbued with exotic origins in their meanings. Yeah, this was pretty common in Europe for people to exoticize new spiritualist things just to make them more popular. By the 1500s, the Italian aristocracy was enjoying a game known as tarocchi appropriati. Players were dealt random cards and used the thematic associations with these cards to write poetic verses about one another, somewhat like the popular childhood game MASH. These predictive cards are referred to as sorties, meaning destinies or lots. They're almost like story prompts, which I love that. I love that a lot. Anyway, just as an artist who creates story prompts on a weekly basis, I just really love that. The regular 52 card deck was used today, as we use today, is French suited with the English pattern. Tarot decks in Europe are still used for non divination card games. The 78 card tarot deck used by esotericists has two distinct parts. The major arcana, or the greater secrets, or trump cards, consists of 22 cards without suits, and the minor arcana, the lesser secrets, consists of 56 cards divided into 4 suits of 14 cards each. I am sure Stephanie will get more into the details of all these different cards and what they mean and how you illustrate them. Obviously, the printing press made cards in general more accessible to the masses. The 3 most common decks used in esoteric tarot are the Tarot of Marseille, the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, and the Thoth tarot deck. Most modern decks use the Rider-Waite-Smith deck as the model. Pamela Coleman Smith illustrated a Rider-Waite-Smith deck for too little money in 6 months. This is coming from a few illustrators here on the show. That's our personal opinion. She was an amazing illustrator who did many book covers, ads, suffragette posters, and she was a British citizen who went to Pratt in New York City. She worked with Lycum Theatre Group led by Ellen Terry, who affectionately called her Pixie, Henry Irving, and Bram Stoker, yes, that Bram Stoker, in London. She was the longest time She, for the longest time, got little credit for the design of the deck. In 1971, US Games bought the rights to publish the deck, and it published it under the Rider Tarot deck because of the differences in the US and UK copyright law. The extent of their copyright in the Waite-Smith deck is disputed. In later editions, they changed the name to Rider Tarot and then Rider-Waite Tarot. Today, most scholars, in order to recognize the importance of Smith's contribution, refer to the deck as the Waite-Smith Tarot. Tarot writers often refer to the deck with a simple abbreviation of RWS for Rider-Waite-Smith. Waite and Rider did the art descriptions and wrote the guide, but Smith did the art. They were members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. A feminist artist also did the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. Her name was Lady Frida Harris, and they worked on it for 5 years. She also helped bankroll it. In addition to the art, Crowley originally intended the Thoth deck to be a 6-month project aimed at the updating the traditional pictorial symbolism of the tarot. However, due to increased scope, and the project eventually spanned 5 years between 1938 and 1943, and both artists died before publication in 1969 by Ordo Templi Orientis. My chair squeaked. Now for the good stuff, the art. Tarot and oracle decks have become really popular. Almost every topic you can think of is covered. I have seen a Hello Kitty tarot deck. I kind of want it. I don't know why. I even found some with designed by Rick and Morty. Now, I know Christina and Jen, you two went out on a little expedition along with going to Eden Park to go see these some of the oddities shops that we have around Cincinnati. So, what did you find when you went?
They had one Thoth deck, right? And then they had like a bunch of the RWS That's much easier to say.
RWS, yes.
Decks. They had it, like you said, there was even a little tiny mini one. I mean, I
Mhm.
think one has to think, because I think now the stuff's public domain, so you see those images used on everything. But
I
they
see
had
a lot
of
of t-shirts.
They had a curiously couple of like cat decks, which was interesting. So I kind of felt seen, crazy cat woman, like cat decks,
Well, yeah, some of them really kind of seemed like, I don't want to say gag gifts type of thing. And then others seemed like they were more for someone that would actually be really into it and would really practice it and use the cards, not just kind of as a novelty.
That may be why the RWS suit is so popular, because it just hits that right in the middle for people who would be more of a moderate user of them, to say, like, you respect the cards, you want a set, but you don't use them daily or weekly in any type of ritual to do any type of divination or other rites of, I don't want to say rites of passage, but
yeah, I mean, it really, like, if you look at, and we were saying your publisher that published does, like, they had like a Poe deck, like Edgar Allan Poe deck, and they had some novelty decks.
Yeah, Schiffer really loves their tarot. Our editor for the paranormal section of the publisher is very much into tarot. She's written her own books before too. So when you texted me and said Schiffer has a bunch of decks, I'm like, oh yeah, they do. That's right. How did I forget? But yeah, they do.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people that publish them, and they seem like very popular art projects, because I know, in addition to Stephanie, who we're going to be talking with, I know of at least 3 other artists that have done tarot decks or are putting together tarot decks with other artists. It looks like a huge undertaking to me. 78 cards. I can't believe that Smith did them in 6 months. I mean, she had to have locked herself in her house and
All right. So everyone, our guest tonight is Stephanie Cost with her tarot deck, The Chromatic Fates. You can follow her on Twitter at Stephanie_draws. So I'm going to read your little blurb.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Stephanie is a freelance illustrator in Seattle, Washington. She grew up in upstate New York and moved to the Pacific Northwest after getting a bachelor's in art. She has been interested in tarot cards for years and makes art based on tarot imagery, as well as nature, history, color, literature, and fantasy landscapes. You can check out her work at stephaniedraws.com. Welcome, Stephanie, to...
Thank you.
Yeah, I almost called this the Paranormal View. That was my previous radio show. We are on Hometown Haunts.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I haven't talked to many people who have undertaken just organizing a tarot card deck and getting all the different artists to draw them and all the different imagery. So what draws you to tarot?
Honestly, I've always really loved systems where everything fits into a niche that all fits together really well. And there's something about tarot that really appeals to that part of my brain. Like it's a kind of mix of narrative and symbolism that kind of interlocks like a puzzle. And I've always just loved like the cyclical nature of tarot and how sort of everything has its perfect place. And you can find basically a card for any situation. So that's sort of what keeps me interested, like, because it's a long process. Any deck takes a long time. So I feel like without that inherent fascination with the symbolism, you're going to have a hard time with any sort of tarot project, because it's going to feel really tedious otherwise.
Yeah. When did you first run into tarot? Like learn about its existence?
It must have been at least 10 or 20 years ago. I'm 31. So I feel like I was a teenager or even a preteen when I first started like seeing tarot cards. And it's because I'm into art. So it's one of those things that you see in stores and you're just like immediately drawn to the imagery. And it's just fascinating, like the ritualistic symbolism and the way the figures are constructed in the traditional deck, the Weight Rider deck at least. There's just something really fascinating about it that kind of pulls you in as soon as you kind of see your first deck. But I really couldn't tell you when I first encountered it. It's been a long time.
Yeah. I think maybe the mid 90s with the X-Files and then the Craft coming out may have brought tarot a little bit more to the zeitgeist than it would have been in previous decades. And before that, the Ouija board just kind of ruled the spiritualist like communication devices. Thank you, Exorcist, for doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how many cards are in a deck?
In a traditional deck, the Weight Rider deck, there's 78 cards. And then there's a few different types of decks that are less well known. But most of them have 78. Like I think the Marseille tarot is the other one that's pretty well known. And it still has 78 cards, but a few of them are rearranged. Like I think Strength and Justice between the Marseille deck and I think they call it the Thoth deck. It's just a different type of tarot deck. They go in different order, but in general, everything is pretty similar to the Weight Rider deck, and there's 78 major and minor Arcana cards.
Yeah, what are the difference between the major and minor Arcana cards?
Well, for the type of deck I'm doing, the Weight Rider Smith based deck, you can identify it in comparison to other decks because the minor Arcana is all illustrated. They call it the pips. And it's basically like the ace through the 10 of whatever suit. So like 10 of swords is a pip card or a minor Arcana card. And in the Weight Rider Smith deck, they're depicted in imagery just like the major Arcana. People are most familiar with the major. I call them the royal cards sometimes, but even that is kind of misleading because if you hear the term Royal Arcana, that's the face cards of the minor Arcana. So there's like minor Arcana, Royal Arcana, and major Arcana. And the majors are the most popular. They're like the Death and the Fool and the Tower, like the very symbolic archetypal cards that are more immediately recognizable in like pop culture.
Yeah.
I like them all though. I think they're all really fascinating.
Yeah, they are. I know the death card gets brought up a lot because it sounds so dark, and it was explained to me a few years ago that it doesn't actually mean death. It just means a renewal, like something is stopping and something else is starting. So it's not really as dark as people like to make it out to be.
Yeah, I think of the death card a lot, and it's one of my favorite cards. Almost like a snake shedding its skin. So it's not always scary or bad. It can be very intimidating because it usually means upheaval. The card you want to look out for is the Tower card. That one means disaster. But the death card usually is a positive change. It just means sort of like maybe an uncomfortable transition. But it's a good card to pull, especially if you're feeling stuck or in a rut, because it means that like change is happening. It's just going to be a huge like upheaval and a big process to go through. I guess
cicadas would be very good to use for the death card. Because right now, I don't know about Seattle, but we got billions of them outside.
We actually don't have them. I was like kind of looking forward to the cicadas because I think they only come every 17 years. And I guess only the East Coast and parts of the central part of the country get them. So I was kind of bummed. But my family's in New York, so they probably have them.
They probably do. They're singing. At least they keep good hours. They sing probably around from like 10 to about 9. So they've quieted down now. It's very considerate of them. They just sound like a dull lawnmower going all the time.
Wow.
Anyway. So this is naturally a large project doing this amount of cards. How do you find artists to participate in doing it?
Oh man. It was a multi-stepped process. And it was very daunting initially because I had the same thought, like, am I going to find 77 other artists to think this is a good idea? And the first thing I did when I thought of the idea, I bounced it between a few friends of mine because I know artists that I thought would be really good for this deck, especially because it was color themed. And, I had a kind of mental list of, oh, so-and-so would be really good for this. So I bounced the idea off because I wasn't even confident that it was a good idea at first. I was like, this might sound crazy. It's a huge undertaking, but they gave me really good feedback. And then from there, I went to basically friends of friends. And then the last stage was the second to last stage was actually the most intimidating. I cold called a lot of people. I sent out emails to artists that I respect, but have never like personally interacted with. And it was actually kind of scary because I felt like a complete nobody, basically. You know, I'd never met these people, or maybe I've met them once or twice, but I had to compose these emails like, hey, you know, this is my idea. I've written up this PDF packet that's like a mission statement, and I've sort of detailed what my project proposal is. So I had to get really official with it. And that honestly was a really good step for me because it had really positive results. Like I got a lot of people that I was really surprised. I was like, oh, you actually want to work with me? This is amazing. Like I'm so excited, slightly terrified now, but you know, I never would have gotten that result if I'd stuck with the people that I knew. Mm-hmm. And then the last stage, I took it public. I think I posted to Twitter and Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this color themed tarot deck. Like, please, you know, leave me your work below and your contact email and stuff like that. I think I said, give me your favorite color, just because at that stage I had ideas of the cards that I needed to fill. So I was specifically looking for, I sort of had it in mind, like, oh, I need to find certain styles that would fit with whoever else is on board with this project. And that was a little overwhelming. I got hundreds of responses for that. So that was actually hard in completely different ways. It was more about like paring things down and identifying which cards would go with which artists and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a long process. And then of course some artists dropped out because inevitably life happens, especially in the fall and winter of 2020. So I had to go back, and there was like a short wait list of people that I pulled in late in the project. And I was really grateful that they were readily available to me. So I have to thank everyone for being so good at communication with me during that stage, because I was just sort of running around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to organize these 78 different niches that I needed specific art styles for. So it worked out though. We got a really good group of people in the end. It worked out really well.
I'm curious, did any artists have any particular card they wanted to work on? Like, did you have 5 different artists going, I need to work on death?
I did actually. Yeah. It was mostly major Arcana cards, followed by the aces. The aces, for whatever reason, are really popular. I think just because they're more archetypal. Like you hear about the ace of spades having a symbolic meaning in regular playing cards, and it comes from things like this, where they have sort of symbolism and meaning involved, and people have their favorite cards. And it was a little heartbreaking because that late in the game, I had to fill only a very narrow selection of cards, and they were completely obscure. Like they were usually minor Arcana cards that maybe no one had any preconceived associations with. And I sort of had to pitch it to people. I tried to give people options, like, oh, I have 3 cards available. You can pick, rank them, please. And then I'll try and, I was talking like 10 to 12 people at once at that stage. And I had to sort of play Jenga with what people's availability was and what their preferences were and what I thought that their style was suited for, because some people have really dark styles and it's not always suited for the lighter cards, and vice versa. But yeah, people love death. The tower and the star are also really popular. I think those are the
Empress too is pretty popular.
Yeah, Empress, and I think High Priestess is also the other really popular one that I ran into. I ended up taking Empress because it was one of the last ones, and I kind of have a soft spot for it, so I kind of claimed that one because I know I wanted to do one card at least. But I tried to hold off my preference towards the end to try and get as many people their first pick as possible. But yeah, it was problem solving. It was like a puzzle.
Yeah, that's project management for you. Christina is our project manager for the Cabinet of Curiosities, and she and we can highly identify with talking to many people at one time, trying to figure out which story they want to talk about. And that's project management. I know it's quite a growing opportunity just in your own work to be able to start managing this many different artists?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. It's an interesting area of work that I never really thought I would be suited for, but there are definitely parts of it that I enjoy. The communication part I'm still a little rocky with. I get anxiety like with 12 emails to look through and stuff like that. But in terms of kind of finding the right fit for people and helping them find their own niche and sort of get their first and second picks, there's something really satisfying about that I like.
Yeah. I like the rank choices too. That seemed like a good,
fair
way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really tough, especially towards the end of the like card picking process, because I had multiple emails out. So I'd like send emails out, and then some people would respond in a few hours and some people would respond in like 5 days, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're trying to fill the same set of cards, I think ranking them really helped, because I could be like, okay, you didn't get your first pick, but you got your third pick, type of thing. So it helped a bit.
Yeah. So do you have any memorable stories about doing this project that you're willing to share with everyone here?
I have a few stories that I don't want to share because they're negative. And it's like personality clashes and expectation clashes. It's a lot of like learning curve things on my end. And of course, with like 80 something artists, it's just going to be a lot of hurdles and unexpected expectations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like the positive stories are all about kind of the most recent stage of things, which is where artists finish up their work and they start sharing it amongst themselves. So it's nothing dramatic, but it's really, it's like a heartwarming type of interconnectivity that starts to happen, because a lot of these people have never met each other before, or some of them are really new to the industry, and some of them work in wildly different types of art. We have like traditional art and then digital artists. So seeing them interact with each other and get positive feedback from each other and sort of like critiquing each other is really rewarding. Yeah. And I think that's kind of been the best part of this, is just like the unintentional networking that happens when you get a whole bunch of people in the same like quote room together. And they share this love for something that in some cases they're really experts in, and in other cases they may have never looked into tarot at all before. So they have to trust me when I'm just like, no, you'd be perfect at this. Like, you're going to be great. It's going to be great. Your art's going to fit in really well. So those types of stories are my favorite, I think.
Yeah. And just the way that you're describing it, it sounds very much in the vein of Pamela Coleman Smith, with the way that she worked with her arts and the bohemian culture that she had in London when she created the her deck. So kind of good.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about her life, but I do know that Pamela Coleman Smith was really into, I think she was responsible for most of the symbolism. So like it was all her baby basically. And I looked into things like, oh, what does the color red mean versus yellow in those traditional cards? Or like, why is there a city versus a bridge in the background of these cards? And every single thing that she put in these cards means something, which I thought is really inspirational, because she obviously loved the project enough to put that much thought into every single card, even the little minor arcana cards that usually people kind of overlook. So that's really inspirational to me too, to be that detail oriented about it.
Yeah. Now, speaking of color, yours is called the Chromatic Fates Tarot.
Yes.
And it has a very fun chromatic scale, but in color. What inspires you to do this theme?
Honestly, it's just as simple as that. I love color myself. And I love tarot. And when the project first started, it didn't start intentionally. It was sort of an organic idea that rose. Me and my friend John Niemeister, we were talking privately. I think this was around October or late September, and we were talking about personal art. And he works for Smite. He's a professional illustrator. And we were talking about how tough it is to do personal art and to deviate in your style when your fan base expects you to do a certain amount of things. And it's kind of like the more followers you get, the tougher it is to deviate from the norm of what people expect you to do. And he and I were talking about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if had like a personal project that we could work on that gave us the excuse to do something really personal and evocative and sort of symbolic and a little surrealist, basically, because it was different from what we normally do. And I was just like, oh, we should do a tarot deck. It kind of like hit upon me because he's really great with color and I love color. And it just was this sort of brainstorm idea that I had. And I was like, oh, that's something that both of us would really like resonate with and we'd love to do. And then I started thinking, I was like, oh, I actually know a bunch of people that love color and they love symbolism. And I could easily see these people attaching different meanings to different colors. And that's sort of where I got the idea from. And then, of course, like I stayed up till 3 a.m. that night just thinking. I was like, oh, this could actually happen. And then one thing led to another. And I was like, oh, if we were to do a tarot deck, what would be like, there'd have to be kind of a motif or a theme. And I came up with the idea of, it's actually pretty simple in retrospect. Like if you spread the deck out, I wanted it to be a gradient. I thought it would just be really stunning and beautiful to go from like reds to blues over the course of these 78 cards if you kind of spread them out. So it's sort of like a just fun, almost shallow theme, but it really comes because everyone I know and that I've talked to has this genuine love for color and just vibrancy in their work and sort of like expressiveness that I associate with color usage. So that's where it comes from for me. And otherwise, I'd love to do a tarot deck that's just black and white, but honestly, I'm terrible with black and white cards. So I'd have to outsource more of that process to other people if I were to do that.
Oh yeah, I love black and white. I'm not good with color with my own illustrations, so but you get really picky with line art when it's all black and white because you can just examine it so much.
I'm honestly terrible at line art and examining things too much. Like I'm not. I'm a perfectionist in some ways, and that's not one of those ways. I usually just get really fed up with my line art, and I'm just like, that's good enough, which is not super cohesive or conducive to a big project like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't get hung up on each little card and all the little details because there's like 77 other cards you have to worry about. Yeah. So you have a Kickstarter. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. Well, it is a huge project for me. So in terms of the experience of the Kickstarter, I could talk for days about the learning process of things that I've personally done to get ready for it. But the campaign itself, in terms of tiers and when it launches and things, it's actually launching this Friday, so really soon.
Woohoo!
Yeah, it was initially supposed to launch earlier in the month, and then because I've never done a Kickstarter before, so I basically ran into all these realizations of the amount of work that's involved. So I pushed it back a little bit. And then I have the pre-launch page up. I submitted it for review and they accepted it. So I have the sort of like the notify me now or notify me when it launches button that's live, which is really exciting. And it's kind of a breath of fresh air because I can start sharing it around while I perfect the like the homepage or the scroll of the story. And I'm making all these graphics and things for it, which is actually really fun. But the campaign itself, it'll be pretty simple relatively. We're going to do a few add-ons like an altar cloth and a pin and some stickers. I want to do a sticker add-on that's just basically like a mini deck of tiny little stickers. So each card will have a little, there's something really adorable about this idea to me. So that's kind of my baby, is these little add-on things. And I have a few friends helping me with those, but the main tiers will be just basically the deck and the early bird version of the deck, which will be kind of discounted. And then there's going to be like a collector's edition. And then I have one higher end tier where you can get like a print or an acrylic print of your favorite card. And it'll be sort of like a one-off. Like you can reserve the death card in sort of a memorialized form if you'd like to. And that's sort of like for the collector that really wants to support our work a lot. But the main reward will be the deck. And hopefully all our stretch goals will be geared towards making it as pretty as possible. We're going to have like hopefully a really nice box. And I want to do like soft touch, like lamination coating for the cards, because I think that's really nice. And of course, gold. I'm really into gold detailing.
Yeah, gold foiling on things just makes it look Just chef kiss.
Hopefully
Great.
the box and the card edges. I'd love to do gold foil detailing as parts of the art itself, kind of like I got this idea from the book Rainbow Fish, the little kids book, like way back when, which I've always loved that aesthetic, like colors mixed with little foil details. But it turns out that is a huge process. The printer wants us to do Adobe Illustrator files for each of these cards, so that would be like a major stretch goal. I think that's going to be the major goal that I'm looking forward to. A bunch of the other stretch goals, like a little white booklet, they call it, for tarot, that you could include with a deck, would be a more lower end reasonable one, because it's more commonly included with a quote from the manufacturer. So I'm more prepared for like the gold edges on the cards and the soft coat touch and the little booklet, but the gold foil that I really want is going to be a major stretch goal. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah, let's hope. So
yeah.
it launches May 28th, which is really exciting. I already am watching the project.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing how well it does. I know we'll promote it and
thank you.
help you along. So with that, can Christina and Jen return from the ether to join us in the circle?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
It's magic.
I know.
Magic.
So are you doing all the design too? Like, do you have someone helping you with? I mean, when I first heard you, because I remember you tweeting about having, looking for artists and stuff, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this looks like so much work to lay this out, and like the booklet. Did you write the booklet too, or like is there like a standard?
The booklet hasn't been written yet. We have a lot of blurbs and writing material from the artists that will be used for the booklet, but that's one of the things that I would be doing during the month of the Kickstarter, probably while sharing with the backers. Like, here's an excerpt from the book that we're writing, type of thing. Design wise, it's a little tricky because one thing that I didn't anticipate, which is something that I learned for if I ever do this type of project again, is that one of the downsides of getting 78 art styles is that getting a border that works with every single art style is actually really hard. So we iterated a whole bunch of different designs. Me and another artist named Carly, who's really amazing. She has a really beautiful graphic style where she uses color really well. And she gave me all these ideas, and it's a little heartbreaking because they're gorgeous. But they just didn't work with some of the art of the cards, because some of them are more rendered, some of them are more detail intense. Like some of them have way more black in them and some of them don't. And I was finding as I was doing these mock-ups of these cards that there wasn't really a design that worked super well. So I ended up doing the design of the border myself, because I was already handling all the card files myself. And what I settled on was a thin border in color, and then I hand drew colored gradients as the outer border for all these cards. And it was really time consuming, but honestly, it was really rewarding, because I got to sort of personally have a hand in the color balance and sort of like the complementary colors that went well with every single card that we had. So design wise, that was a time consuming factor that I didn't take into account at first. But in the future, I would definitely, I would make the border first. That's what I learned from this. And then I would give it to the artist as part of the template, which I should have done and didn't think to do. But yeah, I'm learning how to outsource and how to collaborate and delegate. I'm not very good at it. So there's not a ton of it. There is going to be a lot of collaboration with other people when it comes to the pin and the altar cloth. I have my friend Sam doing the pin, and Key Klein, who's a really incredible artist, doing the altar cloth design. So it'll be a lot of other artist names showing up when the add-ons are announced on the Kickstarter and things like that. And probably the box design and the typography, and then the booklet design, I'm going to have a graphic design help with, which we have within the pool of artists, which is really lucky. We have a huge variety of people's like graphic or rendering or painting skills in the group.
That's amazing. I mean, now, do you think you'd undertake like I guess it's probably early to ask if you would do something like this again, or you know.
I'm so stressed out now that my heart says no. Like, I'm so tired and stressed out. But honestly, it's been really fun. Like, the group that we ended up with, all in all, the 78 of us, or 77 or something, works so well together that it's really a joy to talk to people. So that makes me think that yes, but probably not for years. Like, maybe 5 years from now, we'll do a different theme deck, but still somehow themed around color. I'm looking forward to doing my own projects because there's less anxiety involved for me when it doesn't involve other people. So, I mean, it's hard to say, but probably yes, especially because I've picked up all these skills that would make the next project a lot easier, I think, in terms of management and design and things like that.
You can always do a talking board.
A talking board?
Mm-hmm.
Like a Ouija board, yeah.
Like a Ouija board.
Wow.
Yeah,
we were talking
you
about
only have to
people don't do
focus
that
on
many,
one
yeah.
thing. Yeah, there are not very many.
Yeah, we were saying that there's like
anymore.
a dearth of people that do that kind of stuff. It seems like, you know, a lot of people do tarot decks, and those are very art intensive, and you know, maybe there's some less art intensive.
I can tell you, I have a plan for another color, because it's called like the Color Tarot Project, and it's sort of this catch-all phrase for like the Endeavor in general, and then the Chromatic Fates is our first deck. But I think the next Color Tarot Project deck I work on would be my own work, and I'm planning it now. I just actually mapped out all 78 cards, and it's going to be after the Marseille style. The Tarot de Marseille, I think it's called, is a little more simplistic. The cards are a little smaller. The pips, or the minor arcana, are more abstracted designs, so it's not as narrative intense. But I'm planning to do mermaids.
Oh,
Ooh.
nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That'd be cool.
And I'm just obsessed with matching symbols to a system. So like, I matched them to gemstones. I came up with this list of like 78 different gemstones, and then I researched kind of like the symbolism behind different stones and different colors, and then kind of paired them off with different cards and their symbols. And then it kind of like, it took me till 2 a.m. because you can't stop when you start something like this. But I'm really excited for the mermaid thing. But that's probably also like 4 years down the line. Please.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much work it's going to be, but I love doing stuff like that. Just anything with color and symbolism is a lot of fun for me.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you ever do your own readings with cards? Like, have you, or is that something you're as into? Like, do you ever, you said you don't have much of a sensitivity.
I treat them more almost like how people treat oracle decks, more so, where they use them for inspiration and for kind of kickstarting what your intuition is telling you that you're interested in, if that makes sense. So I'll occasionally play with tarot decks and sort of like pull cards and use it to sort of like brainstorm ideas for things, usually for stories. But no, I don't do any sort of like ritualistic readings. This might be a disappointment to tarot fans. I'm sorry. I don't know a lot about the ritual of tarot.
Well, it's actually,
and I use them. What?
Oh, go on. Finish your sentence. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I use them more as like a creative aid in terms of my own creative process in drawing.
Well, it's interesting,
but not so much for fortune telling.
We were just saying that in the brief history of tarot that we did before, that's actually how tarot cards started. Was aristocracy would use the cards. They didn't use them for divination, but almost as story prompts.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that it was sort of a courtly game.
Yes.
So that's cool to hear. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
what does the tower card mean?
The tower card basically means calamity. Like, if you pull the tower card, your first reaction should be like, oh no, like something terrible is going to happen. it usually depicts, most tower cards will have a picture of a tower and then lightning striking the tower and then something collapsing or being destroyed. It basically means a disaster is about to happen. And the reason it's so important, and because the reason why tarot is so important in order, is because it follows a story. So like the card that comes after the tower is the star. And actually in our deck, I was really excited because I got Philip Byers, who's an amazing artist, to do our star card. And he's really well known for doing imagery of towers. And I was like, okay, well, we already have a tower artist, but could you do like a sister card that also has a tower, but way more uplifting and more hopeful? Because the star card means basically hope after disaster. Like you think you basically hit rock bottom and then you learn to pick yourself up and see what you still have and to sort of like appreciate what comes next after the disaster strikes. So I really love pairing the tower and the star together just narratively, because I think it's a really uplifting message, especially for like 2020 and then 2021 where everyone's just like hitting rock bottom here. But yeah, the tower's a bad card in general, unfortunately.
Now, did you find as you did research, like a card kept showing up? Like, did you have like any kind of card that seemed to be like
man,
like a synchrony? Like every time you like would open a deck, this card would come up. Did you?
I want to say a lot of what I found, not a specific card, but a lot of the coin cards turned out to be really significant, because I associate them. Basically, when the artists were brought on board, I tried to give them cards that I thought they would resonate with really well. And the whole point, my hope was that each artist would identify with the card that they picked and be able to really put themselves into the imagery really well. And what I found was a lot of people wanted coin cards because it has to do with perseverance and the creative process and basically hard work, which if you're among a bunch of artists, especially if they're trying to break into an industry, it's just naturally what you're going to find people are interested in. But I think in terms of like weird coincidences, I think the 8 of Swords kept coming up, which is kind of a dark card too. So I don't know what that means. The 8 of Swords means basically you're trapped by something or you feel trapped by something and you need to sort of see your way out of a self-imposed prison, basically. I don't know if that speaks to the project at all, but I think there's sort of like a dark undercurrent to a lot of tarot cards that the artists did really well with, because even the darkest cards, I think they brought this vibrancy and this sense of hope and perseverance to it that I think artists inherently understand, especially if they've been working for a long time in the industry and sort of kind of forging their own path. It's something that they can really speak to. And that's one unexpected bonus of the project, is that all the cards are ultimately uplifting or even playful. Like our devil card is Key Klein did the devil card, and it's just like joyous to see. It's super multicolored with like a black background. It's really amazing. But yeah, 8 of Swords, for whatever reason. Maybe in the future I can tell you what that means.
So is the devil card often considered a bad card? Like,
it is in a different way, where the tower is more like a fortune-telling bad thing, like, oh, something bad is going to happen. The devil usually symbolizes a figure in your life or a temptation. It's basically the temptation card. It usually stands for vice or addiction. And it depicts 2 lovers. In the traditional card, there's 2 lovers standing side by side and they're chained, and then there's the devil. And it can mean all sorts of things, but usually it's more of a forewarning of something that you can change, whereas the tower is more of a forewarning of something is going to happen. It's all about how you recover from it once it does happen, if that makes sense.
and what's go on, Kat.
Oh no, I was just looking through the different cards, and the thing that struck me was I actually didn't know the 4 different minor arcana. Like, I know there's swords and I know there's cups, but I think there's other things besides that, and I don't know what they all mean. Like, their symbology.
I can give you a quick rundown, at least of the traditional deck. So the Minor Arcana has 4 suits, and some tarot creators will differ a little bit, but in general, there's wands, swords, cups, and coins or pentacles. Traditionally, it's called pentacles, but a lot of people, including me, call them coins. And they're actually interesting because they evolved to the modern playing deck system. So you see like spades was swords. I think diamonds was coins. I can't quite remember now, but they have elements attached. So coins are earth and wands are fire, cups are water, and swords are air. And there's sort of a deep symbolism. So all of the symbolic meanings kind of have to do with the elements. Like coins or earth have a lot of meanings that have to do with sort of earthly concerns or materialistic concerns. So you see a lot of themes of work and wealth and legacy. Like the 10 of coins is actually a really amazing card to pull because it depicts this kind of like idyllic familial legacy of basically you've become wealthy and you're providing for your children and you've established a legacy. So it's this really nice, like happy ending card. Whereas swords have a lot of the more traditionally dark cards. And I think it's because they symbolize intellect. So there's air and then it's sort of the suit of the mind. So a lot of the darker cards, like 8 of Swords I talked about, is not so much like a materialistic prison in the real sense. It's more of a state of mind. So tarot's main purpose is to guide you through different situations where a lot of times the problem is your own state of mind or your consideration or your mindset or your lack of options. So like 3 of Swords is also a terrible card to pull. The 3 of Swords is actually, I think, one of the darkest in the entire deck. It's the one that depicts usually a heart pierced by 3 swords in a storm. And it basically stands for pain and betrayal. It has a lot of themes of just anguish. And again, it's like a mental card. It stands more for I keep wanting to say emotion, but it's separated from the cup suit it's sort of more internalized. Cups is all about, I mean, you have associations with water, right? That are, I think, ingrained in everything. So it's like deep emotions, passions, intuition. It's the intuition suit. So with cups, you have like Queen of Cups is sort of the motherhood or like compassionate figure in your life. So if you have a really positive relationship with like your mother, that's the typical Queen of Cups card, which is a really positive one. And then wands and coins are sort of the artists. The one that artists I think love because wands is fire, but it also stands for creativity. So it stands for a type of passion that's associated with adventurous spirits, sort of impetus and willpower. There's a lot of themes of willpower and perseverance in the wands cards, and they're kind of the hardest to pinpoint, but I think they're one of the coolest to pull. Like if you were to actually do a tarot reading, pulling wands cards is actually really positive because it stands for like a lot of self-agency and like starting your own projects, going on adventures, like journeying forth. That's a very, very fiery type of thing to do. So they all have deep meanings and they kind of interplay a little bit, but in general, you can separate them based on like, is this a materialistic concern? Is it intellectual? Is it to do with your intuition or is it to do with your willpower? So that's kind of why I love the Minor Arcana, because they get really in depth with very specific situations and ways to navigate life.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. No one has done that for me before.
Do you also like I guess when the cards are upside down, do they usually mean the opposite? Is that a misconception or is it like more nuanced than that?
Kind of both. That's in general what it is. I have a more limited understanding of the negative or the reversals, they call them. I just haven't memorized a lot of them, but in general, it usually means the opposite. So like, for example, the Magician card in the Major Arcana stands for power, basically, and wisdom and knowledge. Basically, like you are the master of your craft, or a person in your life has a lot of power or knowledge to impart upon you. It's a really good card. But if it's reversed, it can stand for lack of power or manipulation. So if you pull a reversed magician, it's kind of sinister because it's almost warning you maybe about a person or about a helplessness in your own life, or it's basically telling you you are being manipulated by someone else. Or if it stands for yourself, because some tarot spreads have a specific position that stand for yourself versus other people. It can mean that you are in a position where you're manipulating someone or are being manipulated, or you just have no power at all. So whatever positive connotations of a card you can think of in general, when they're reversed, you can sort of like just invert it to the opposite. And they're almost always negative, but not always, I don't think. Like the Tower reverse would be good.
Yeah.
I think, though I can't imagine why. Maybe it means you'll
build something,
narrowly avoid disaster,
or maybe it means that you're going to build something, or
yeah. They all have their own meanings, and I haven't looked into them as much. And some people don't play with reversals at all, and they just do pulls. Yeah, I personally like them, and design wise, it's a little tricky. I designed, or Carly and I designed the back of our cards specifically to be reversed because it's more versatile for people that read tarot. Initially, we had a design that was really cool. It was our whole theme is, we have like an organic theme that just arose for some reason. A lot of people were drawing trees. So I was like, oh, like we can play with the idea of leaves and trees. So she drew this really awesome crystalline leaf design that I think is gorgeous, but it wasn't reversible, and it was driving me nuts. I was like, do I want to limit the audience that might go for this deck because they play with reversals, or do I want to go with a design that I really love? And ultimately we went with another idea of hers, of a tree with like points of light and color that can be reversed in a really clever way. So that was a design decision that I very intentionally took into account because of reversals. So it's just different. You'll encounter cards that you can't reverse the back or anything, but you can still play with reversals. They're pretty fun, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, because one of my questions was going to be, what's the best card to pull? And it sounds like it's the 10 of coins or pentacles.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of them that are really great to pull. What would be the best?
I think that would depend on the person who's being read.
Yeah. The 10s are really interesting because they're so polarized. Like the 10 of swords is horrible. That's the one with 10 swords sticking out of a guy's back, and he's just like lying face down in a pool of blood. Like that's literally the card. It's just bad.
That's like,
well, that sounds like a wonderful
Yeah.
Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, 10 of swords is like ultimately betrayal. 10 of coins is really good. 10 of wands is bad, but not quite as bad. Let's see, what is the 10 of cups is also really good. So 10 of cups or 10 of swords, 10 of cups or 10 of coins would be great. 9 of cups or 9 of coins would also be good. A lot of the 9s, because the aces through 10s go through their own stories. So a lot of like the middle cards usually involve a lot of hard work, and then the upper levels are sort of like the endings of the stories in a way. So if you pull a 9 or a 10, it can sometimes be really positive because it stands for someone that's reached the end of their journey. So like 9 of coins it's the one with the a woman figure, and she's holding a bird in her hand, and the coins in the background symbolize sort of like plenty. So it stands for like basically a figure that has reached a high level of success, but in the distance of the traditional card, you can see sort of like a castle or a village, I think it is. And it basically means that you are in a position of success, but you are still far from home. Like you have yet to return. So that's why the 10 of coins is the idea of like, you have now returned with the fruits of your labor, literally, and you are now sharing it amongst your family, and you're creating something from what you've earned. So 9 and 10s are usually really good, but I'm trying to think of any major Arcana cards that would be really good to pull. Definitely the star, the sun, the world, and probably like the Empress and the High Priestess would be my favorite ones to pull in terms of just positive imagery, especially the sun. The sun and the world are, I almost think they're a little boring in my opinion, just because they're so positive. It's basically like, I think the world is the one that traditionally shows a baby on a horse and there's just like a parade and the sun in the background. And it's just like, everything is great. Everything's worked out great. Yeah.
Everything
It's
is
really
awesome.
card. It's just like not super artistically interesting for me. That's just my personal opinion.
The card that I always liked the artwork from as a kid was Wheel of Fortune. I always thought that was kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because the Waite Rider Smith Wheel of Fortune has so much esoteric symbolism in it. It's almost incomprehensible these days. Like it has like a Sphinx character, I think. It has some sort of a whole bunch of symbolism that to today's audience means nothing. But that's why it's really cool to look at indie decks and see the way they tackle the Wheel of Fortune, because it basically stands for what it sounds like, this idea of like fate and the concept of if you're on top, you will soon be on the bottom and vice versa. And just the unpredictability of what you're going through. Our Wheel of Fortune artist, Barbara, I think she did like a ship's wheel.
Oh,
so I'm really excited for that. So she has the traditional imagery where the figure is blindfolded, but it's this huge ship's wheel to symbolize just basically like you are in control, but you don't necessarily always know what's going to happen or where you're going. So I think that was pretty cool. But it's an interesting card. It's almost a chaotic card to pull, which doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and you're right. It would be very complicated unless you're schooled in runes and alchemy and old religions. So for those of you who don't have it, it's the Hermetic magical religious system is on it, as well as alchemy. And if you're looking at it, it's very similar to Taoism and your directions and your feng shui, with like north being the phoenix and the south being the tiger. It's very much like that. So, but just from a Hermetic background. So
yeah, that I love alchemy in general and the imagery involved in that. I do not know nearly enough about Hermetic imagery or even alchemy imagery to be able to interpret these cards, let alone give a reading based on these imagery. So I have a very surface level understanding of that one. The other one that's super, super esoteric is the moon card. I think it has a crayfish in it, which symbolizes something. Yeah. And our artist, Aria Fawn, is the artist that did our moon card. And she actually included the crayfish because she thought the imagery was really cool. And I'm just like, good for you. Like, this is amazing. It's not something that I would find a way to interpret in my own art, but she pulled it off really well. The moon is interesting too. It usually has like a dog and a wolf, which I've read symbolizes sort of reason and wildness, or like the bestial nature of the human psyche or something like that. They get really, Pamela Anderson Smith was incredibly into symbolism of every single thing she put into these cards. But it's not always readable by modern audiences that might not have any understanding of these mindsets. So I let the artists basically include as many of these old Easter eggs as they wanted, which turned out to be really fun. So a lot of our cards do have things like crayfish in the moon and a wolf and things like that. But usually it's geared towards sort of like a modern understanding and associations with different imagery. So it's a good mix.
So in the book, you're basically going to have each artist's statement. So like that's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, we're going to try and include as much as they're comfortable talking about, because everyone has a different level of awareness and intentionality behind what they've chosen to do. I let them be as intuitive as they want it to be. But yeah, I'm going to try and get as much info out of them as possible and then write it up. I want to do a PDF version that I can give to everyone as part of the Kickstarter. And then the tinier little book that'll go with the physical deck too. So hopefully we'll have both. And the PDF at least will have like big colorful images of these cards because they're really amazing in full digital color.
Well, we can't wait to look at them. I mean,
yeah, I
this is
can't
really
wait
exciting.
to see these. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I already love just the promotional photo that you have on the Kickstarter. The one is in the central. It is a Dayglow card with a skull and purple flowers around it. And I'm like, yes, I don't know what card that is, but yes, I like it.
Yeah, that sounds like our death card, but I'd have to see.
It's a skull within it's a teal skull within a magenta lotus with a is a coral color moon behind it, and it looks very Dayglow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's direct center of your photo.
It's direct center in the promotional, but it has a skull in it, so of course my interests are up.
Oh, if you love skulls,
Same.
yeah, I love to draw skulls myself. They're in almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Well, this makes me want to look at decks closer. I mean, you've really clarified for me a lot of stuff. I mean, I've like idly looked through them, but I don't know that much about them. So it's really been interesting to hear you discuss what they all mean. So I can't wait to see the cards in person.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I always recommend just getting into tarot for anyone, even if you're not into the idea of reading the future with them, just because the symbolism is so deep that the more you learn, the more ideas start sparking. I don't know. I like pairing cards together and kind of like coming up with ideas just based on the way the symbolism suggests a narrative based on like what's in the before and what's in the after pile and stuff like that. So it's really awesome, especially for anyone that's creative, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want a reading.
One last question is, the Kickstarter starts on the 28th, but when could people expect to get their cards?
Oh, what I'm saying in the Kickstarter is probably February of 2022. It's a very conservative estimate. Basically, I'm operating under the assumption that COVID will cause problems. It's caused problems for everyone I know that's done Kickstarters in the last year or so. So it's just something that I'm taking into account as to not disappoint backers. I'm hoping to have the bulk of the orders in by the end of this year. Like by winter, I should have the order from the manufacturer unless something goes wrong. So it's and I'm promising early bird backers, I think by October or November, that they should be out, because even with a delay, the decks should be to me by September. Almost all the cards are done. Probably most time consuming part is going to be doing the gold, like the foil detailing for every card. But yeah, if everything goes according to schedule, it should be done this fall and then shipped out by the end of winter. So
yeah.
Is it being printed domestically or you have to do it overseas?
No, it's being printed overseas. Domestically would just be too costly, especially because if you go domestic cards, a lot of times they go overseas themselves if you do things like gold foiling, which I learned just in the course of this product. Very few companies in the States will do huge bulk orders with certain things like certain types of lamination, certain foiling details. They just ship it out overseas anyway. So I went directly to a manufacturer in China and I've been talking to them for months. So they're really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing these things in person. And they sent me a bunch of sample packs, which was really fun to go through and kind of like pick my ideal cards and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, it's been really exciting.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today and sharing your knowledge of tarot.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and like definitely let me know if you have fun with the decks and if you resonate with certain cards, because I think that's so fascinating that people have favorites that they just kind of click with.
Yeah,
thanks for coming on. And we were just saying that a big project like this on last week's episode, because Kat and I both do comics, and then I do a lot of picture books, and I said after each project I feel like I fought a big boss monster and like how many experience points did I get? And this seems like a huge thing. So like
it's really huge. I'm definitely looking forward to. I think I'm just gonna become a hermit after this Kickstarter ends. I'm just gonna like leave Twitter, sail off into the sunset, and just like draw mermaids for a few months or something.
There has to be a card. Which card is that?
That's the Six of Swords, I think. Look it up.
Might I suggest a mermaid skeleton? That would be cool.
Awesome. That is cool.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
that would be cool. That would be the death card in her mermaid deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, I would say that the Ten of Swords, where you got the dead mermaid with all of the swords in it.
Oh man. See, you got it. You can make your own deck now. The ideas are flowing already.
Yeah. They are. I was thinking like I think death would be an eel or something that is undersea that sheds skin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like the devil would be like what do they call those? The lure fish with the light.
Oh yeah, the angler.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
An anglerfish.
Anglerfish. Yeah.
That would be perfect. And a little little couple of fish.
Yeah.
Somehow joined together. It's starting to look like Pisces, but whatever. Yeah.
But before we go, is there like we noticed even just yesterday, Jen and I went to a store that sold a lot of tarot decks, and there was a lot of cat tarot decks. And we were wondering if there was a weird tarot deck you saw in your research that you were like, I can't believe someone made this. And I'm not saying in a bad or good way. Like, was there something very odd you saw? Like you said, like anglerfish tarot or something.
Oh, I've come across a lot of them. The one that jumps out to me, it's not even weird in a bad way or even that weird, but I came across this deck that has really cute frogs and like woodland critters just drawn in a super cute like big eyes and like kind of Alice in Wonderland fashion. And it's in my Amazon cart. I want to get this deck like as a reward for myself because it's so cute. I don't even remember the name of it. I'll have to get back to you, but yeah, there's a bunch of animal themed ones out there. I've run into some that are like deep sea creatures. I think there's a one on Kickstarter right now that's about to launch. That's all about deep sea creatures. You can basically make a deck about anything, like, which is kind of the beauty of tarot. If you can create a system out of anything you're passionate about, you're ready to go. So yeah, the cat themes, I don't really know why. That's a really popular deck too. Like the cat tarot is famous. Whoever did it is a genius. They hit the right market somehow, but
they did. They really did.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the cute frog tarot, I guess.
Well, considering during this interview I've had to break up a kitten fight. That's what I was kind of
is that what that was?
Yeah, the kittens were fighting. I hope you didn't hear growling because like at one point I
didn't hear growling, but I heard some very obvious cat sounds. I'm like, well,
yeah, I adopted two kittens that are brothers, and they started wrestling by my feet, of course, as you were talking. So I guess that they were doing their own kind of thing.
Yes, they got to be part of everything.
Yes, they do.
What are their names?
Conan and Bob.
Oh.
So Bob's a bobtail, so that's why.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I see. That's cute.
they're very cute, but it's fun watching them play together. We've always wanted to adopt, sibling kittens. It's been really fun. But
I like watching Bob walk around you just because I like how bobtails walk.
Yeah, he kind of sachets.
Yeah,
yeah.
Got attitude.
That's why they have all these cat decks, because all these crazy cat ladies. Like obviously, and
well, you do have attitudes. Cats have strong personalities, so I can definitely see it being a thing with all these different card meanings.
What did you say? There's a Hello Kitty deck?
There is a Hello Kitty deck. Somebody pointed out to me a few years ago. Nothing is stranger and more surreal than seeing Hello Kitty dressed up as the Grim Reaper on the back of a pale horse.
Well, I was just thinking about the heart with the swords in it.
I don't know which one I want to see. Did they off Keropi? Like what? I want to see what this card looks like. But with the cute forest animal ones too, I'm thinking with the darker like the Tower and the Ten of
There's
Swords.
a lot of like dark humor involved in these lighter decks, which I personally find hilarious, but yeah, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, you're among friends here. We'd probably all find it funny.
Yeah.
yeah, we get into interesting discussions here. That's what the podcast is for.
Yeah. So before you leave, Stephanie, can you give out all of your social media where people can find you?
Yeah. So on Twitter, I am Stephanie_draws. On Instagram, I'm Perstephanie, spelled PERSTEPHANE. My website is stephaniedraws.com. And I think Facebook, if you just type in /Stephanie Koss, it should come up. I honestly rarely use Facebook, so Twitter and Instagram are the ways to find me.
Yes. Expect Red Cat Comics to be following you soon.
Oh, thank you.
And
Well,
Jen
thank you
Kohler.
so much.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. This has been really informative. And good
Yeah.
luck.
Yeah, it means a lot that you had me on. This was really fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And it will drop midnight on the 2nd.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to look at the calendar and I was like, and of course it still says May. So I was like, what day is that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
midnight.
Something.
It really comes out to be like Tuesday night, but it's like Wednesday. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
yeah, we'll send you a link when it's up. I'll cut it early next week. And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks so much for being on.
Yeah,
This has been really
thank
great.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And good luck. I hope that it like, goes really fast so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. It's gonna be a mixed bag. I vacillate between feeling really optimistic and super nervous. I'm just like, I want to climb into a little hobbit hole and be a hermit
I
forever.
think that's how we were too last year with our comic book Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It was like, do people want this product that we're putting out on Kickstarter?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you're halfway there.
Yes,
So,
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this time next week I'll be in a completely different mindset. Hopefully a really good mindset.
Yeah. Well,
if it goes well.
possibly by the time this airs, it might have already funded. So
Ooh,
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to say, but that's what I'll be hoping for.
mhm. It'll fund. I mean, it looks really great with the amount of artists that you have and stuff, with their networks and stuff.
Yeah, I'm having a ton of fun just making graphics. Like, I think last night I spent a few hours just cutting out white space around cards to make them look as modern as possible and making gold borders. And I don't know. I'm in danger of getting a little too into it, but hopefully
Well, when we did our Kickstarter, I got obsessed with making a flaming skull animation.
Yeah, you made a lot of flaming skulls. Dancing flaming skulls, flying flaming skulls.
Totally worth it.
Yeah,
You cannot
it was
have
great.
too many. You
Yeah,
can't.
yeah,
you
you never
can't.
can have too many. That's what we always joke about our because Norman Rockwell had said, if a composition is not working, add a dog, and if it's still not working, put a bandage on the dog's leg. And
Yeah.
and our fantasy art similar saying is, if a drawing's not working, add a skull, and if it's still not working, add more skulls, and if it's still not working, add a dragon.
I mean, yeah.
It works. It does work.
It does work. Oh,
Yeah.
On
That's
that
good
note-
advice.
on that note,
Skulls. Yeah.
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 Well, thanks for being on, and we'll
Yeah.
let you know when it's up.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
You
Bye.
too,
Thanks.
Stephanie.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
See you later.
bye-bye.
See ya.